Candace Owens is a force for good in the world. Uh, yeah. And I'm not even joking. I think she's unintentionally a force for good, but I've come to this conclusion in recent days. Uh, Candace Owens is so determined to be so out there with everything she says now, that the fact that she still has an audience, and I don't know if it's growing, but it's definitely not shrinking, that follows her to the gates of hell with really unbelievable statements that I'm coming to the conclusion that she's probably more of a Jesse Lee Peterson type. I kind of I think I rejected that idea from somebody in the chat a few days ago, and now I'm wondering how much of it she believes, how much of it she knows will get clicks. And look, we like it when we get high viewership here, so I understand it. But there are things we will not do for that high viewership. I don't think that's the case for Candace Owens. I think she's a good filter. You meet somebody, they seem like a decent human being. If they're a Candace Owens fan, that is all you need to know about them. So in that sense, she's a force for good in that the morons and the evil people who like her are kind of, in their own separate world. All right, I'm joined by James Valliant and Jonathan Honig. We are going to go straight to Candace, and let's go to the first clip. Yeah, let's go to the first clip.
Hey Tuesday, everybody. Today we're going to keep the subject matter light. We're going to discuss Adolf Hitler. No, but I'm completely being serious. Literally, Hitler is on the agenda because why can't we discuss him ever? We should. So you guys already know that I absolutely loved Tucker Carlson Down Under, the way that he was just giving it to the journalists because all of their questions were so predictable. And when they got on the subject of Russia, 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 because how could they resist themselves, Tucker had the best response. Take a listen.
Putin! Putin! I think you did strategically because you knew it's what we'd ask.
Putin! He's so bad!
And I also appreciate that.
Did he make you take the COVID shot?
Putin! That is exactly how a lot of us feel when they start hammering this Russia is bad narrative. We're just bored with it. And by the way, it's not just Putin. I am also so incredibly bored. I am exhausted. I am tired. I need a nap. When people start doing...
All right, wait. This is a good time to stop because I'm also tired, exhausted, and also need a nap, but I'm gonna push through with my coffee here for whatever we have left of Candace. I don't know, the fact that she kind of mentions Hitler and then Putin, it's interesting in and of itself. Of course, she kind of defends both of them. Yeah. Jonathan, any thoughts? I don't even have a question. Any thoughts on
I
that?
mean, Candace Owens is a real lightweight. I think she's a grifter. She kind of loves to shock us, and kind of will stoop to no new lows. And this is really, you're kind of just getting into it. I mean, her comments on Jews in particular and the Jews over the course of the last couple of years have kind of gotten worse and worse. And I think since she left the Daily Wire, or I guess I should say was kicked off the Daily Wire, I think it's been kind of stooping to new lows of having to kind of get clicks. And, the difference, it's like, Ayn Rand said some shocking things and all backed up by meticulous thought and reason and explanation. Candace Owens is always just asking questions. And we have a number of, examples of that, but with the most, asinine, idiotic, old, faithful anti-Semitism that, to me, it's like she has always just been a pretty face. She's not always even been a conservative. She is, I think recently as 2015, ran an anti-Trump blog or an anti-Trump initiative. So, she's now a religious grifter. Her defense to anything is Christ is king, Christ is king. So, she's, I think, a very boring anti-Semite. And as you said, Razi gives us kind of mounds and mounds of clips to run to demonstrate just how ignorantly powerful she remains.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point, she loves to shock us. I remember when people wanted to shock us, they would go on the Super Bowl halftime show and like tear off a bit of the, top so that we see a nipple. That was a different kind of shocking. Is this where we're at with, like, you want to shock us, you need to defend Hitler, James?
Well, the thing is, Jonathan's absolutely right. She's a grifter and she's a religious nut. The point is, she's got an audience. I mean, her opinions are so far beneath factual contempt that if it was just up to her, I would not say we should even do an episode on her. But she does have this huge following, a bigger following than we, alas, at Ayn Rand Center UK yet have. But it's growing. We're growing. But she's got a bigger audience. And she's speaking to a group of people. There are American Christians out there who just lap up everything she says. It's not taboo to talk about Hitler. No, that's a cover for her talking about BS about Hitler to try and get us to forget the copious evidence of the Holocaust, as this clip later demonstrates. No, she wants to talk about Hitler in a historically revisionist way that ignores any of the actual evidence, so she can reframe Hitler altogether. No, we have no problem talking about Hitler. My teacher and great mentor and teacher, Dr. Leonard Peikoff, wrote a whole book about Hitler in The Ominous Parallels. Good people have no problem talking about Hitler, Ms. Owens. No, they don't. They do have a problem with people who ignore the evidence and try and downplay or deny the horrors of the Holocaust. And Drazi, you have a talent. People often will say, Jim, you get so fired up on these shows for Ayn Rand Center UK. And part of it's your fault. Because if I contemplate for 5 minutes, someone like Candace Owens, it gets me upset. This woman is morally atrocious. She has the intelligence to speak English words as comprehensibly as she does, and yet she can and should know better before she opens her trap, as pretty as it is, Jonathan, before she opens her trap and publicly advocates the nonsense that she does, the horrific nonsense that she does.
Yeah, by the way, I also see Chandler in the chat once again. We've had this conversation, Chandler, but he says she's a hottie. Yeah, well, we'll agree to disagree on that. But yeah, her looks are, I think I've said this, her looks are the least offensive thing about her. And Tenebris says, at least Jesse Lee Peterson is funny. Yeah, because Jesse Lee Peterson is kind of like a, reverse Ali G on steroids, who is black but a white supremacist. So it kind of it's funny in mostly in a how do people actually buy into this kind of way. Should we go to the next clip? Jonathan, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, no, let's run the clip.
The, of course, literally Hitler comparisons. It's over. It's canceled. Please stop it. Really started drumming up in 2015 when Trump was running. Literally Hitler, literally MAGA. They're just like Nazis. It's always literally, right? It's never figuratively. They're like, no, literally Donald J. Trump is Hitler. And of course, I've gone through it. Any person really that has a platform has gone through this, but I will never forget this. Now that I'm on the other side of it and so many years have passed, the first time that I ever almost got canceled, it was because I was discussing Adolf Hitler in an academic sense. Actually, the subject wasn't even about Adolf Hitler. It was a question that was being asked of me. You remember this clip notoriously. They were asking about the word nationalism and why people are afraid of embracing the word nationalism. And I said that it was wrongly attributed to Adolf Hitler. And then BuzzFeed took me out of context. They made it seem as though I was saying Hitler was a good guy, which of course I wasn't. That's always a hoax when somebody is pretending that someone jumped up and said that. But it didn't matter. People were incensed. They were demanding my cancellation. I had Jewish groups demanding my cancellation and saying, how dare I? And I even got blacklisted temporarily from Fox News until Stuart Varney was the first one who had me on his show. And we talked about the scandal, and he gave me a piece of advice. He said, you should just never talk about Adolf Hitler. And at the time, I was so appreciative. I was like, thank you for allowing me to not have my entire platform canceled. But I reflect on that, and I'm like, what an absolute nonsense that is. And I'm not saying this about Stuart Varney, but just that general idea, and that is an idea that permeates, is that we are not allowed to discuss Adolf Hitler.
All right, let's all right, yeah, this is a good Jesus Christ. Okay. She was blacklisted from Fox News for appearing to defend Hitler. That's good news about Fox News. I mean, look, yeah, people can be. I remember being on Twitter on October 7th and being called a Nazi. People do call people Nazis randomly, and so there's a point here where she kind of seems like maybe she is the victim of something, and yeah, Jonathan.
What's to discuss? She's so outwish. Why can't we discuss Adolf Hitler? It's like, Candace, where have you been? My mom happens to be a docent at the Illinois Holocaust Museum, which has, exhibit after exhibit for a couple of decades now, all about Adolf Hitler, all about the Holocaust. Same thing with Yad Vashem in I believe it's in Jerusalem, or where is it? In Tel Aviv, Razi? That's the
Yeah,
Israeli
that's in Jerusalem.
in Jerusalem, the Israeli Holocaust Museum. There's also the Holocaust Museum that's the United States Holocaust Museum. Like, all this study of Hitler, and there's not much new that Candace Owens just asking questions is going to present. But I think she's out of ideas. I think she's really kind of out of ideas, and now it's become this just asking questions about kind of really truth. And I don't know whether it's looking for clicks, but Razi, I know you're gonna kind of get into some of it, which came out on this recent missive, this recent presentation.
Yeah, I thought we got into quite a bit of it, but it does get worse, so there is a reason to stick around. James.
I noticed she ignored Stuart Varney's advice and is now flapping her jaws about Adolf Hitler. She would have been well served to pay attention to Mr. Varney's sound advice there, even though he did have her on.
Just on that point, she's getting more views than Fox News. So I'm sure she's getting more views than Stuart Varney, but I think she's getting more views than whoever's on prime time. I mean, she gets millions of views. So
that question, the thing that Jonathan keeps reminding us of, remember the last discussion we had on Candace Owens, she has rejected science as a pagan cult that it is, and so she's neither a flat earther nor a round earther. She's just asking questions. And if she's at the epistemological level, the mental wherewithal level, where she can just ask questions about flat earth and just ask questions about Nazi atrocities, we can see just how lost she is and how detached utterly from reality she is, and how everything that comes out of her mouth really is either an attempt to forward a political agenda or to get clicks.
She is called the Mengele experiments propaganda. She has equated Holocaust education in the West to indoctrination, and it's so funny. It's like a young person who doesn't know history, who now takes this kind of great pleasure and delight in questioning it when it's been settled, but she's like discovering it now seemingly for the first time.
It is historical fact, Miss Owen. More than 15,750 documented and confirmed cases of medical experimentation done by the Nazis.
Now, and I believe we're going to get to that point, right? We will get to that clip.
Okay, I'll shut up.
But I will quickly,
as a historian,
I will thank our super chatters. We always get super chats when we talk about Candace Owens. Thank you, Politicas, who says, Candace, we were, quote, we were Hyperboreans, sigh. Alexis, thank you for the super chat. Alexis says, Candace Owens Jones is pure evil. Thank you, Crusader General. I'm not going to read it because of the name calling, parts of the name calling, which I can decipher. In this case, part of it I think is unnecessary, but Crusader General says that Candace and Tucker are sponsored by Qatar, and has some more choice words. Should we play, Jonathan?
Well, I'll remind people that Candace Owens, at least here in the States, is considered a favorite of conservatives. I mean, she would be considered a friend of capitalism. She's a little off the range and certain things, but like Right, James. She's supposedly the advocate for good old American way, free market capitalism that's going to save us from those evil leftists with their, trans and I don't know the rest. She is seen as conservatives are the worst friends of capitalism, and capitalists, and Candace Owens is the best example of that.
I mean, Hitler starts a war. Hitler is overtly racist and kills millions of people because of their ethnicity. And to Candace Owens' mind, hey, we should be able to have a calm talk about Hitler and the positive things he did. And, geez, if he just wanted to build the Autobahn, if it was just about Germany, and that's been her attitude as well.
She's trying to make light of it now, 5 some years later, of that comment. She said, well, if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, that's just fine. I mean, she's so ignorant. And, go visit some of these, Holocaust memorials and learn what you don't know. I mean, Jim, she was so kind of surprised to learn, boy, the Nazis really didn't, have medical experiments. That's just, that was just sent to shock us, it's.
Yeah, but Jonathan, I have to point out, and we were talking about this also before the show, the idea that if she goes to Yad Vashem or goes to Auschwitz or anything, she will somehow change her mind, I think is disproven by her own history, including that clip that went viral a few months ago of her talking about how she went to Jerusalem and she saw there was the Muslim quarter, and she said, well, this is the only place where Muslims are allowed to live, and it's like segregation. So even when she sees something with her own eyes, her mind tells her whatever story she would like to think, or whatever she thinks will get her clicks.
I could take her to the Holocaust Museum. I could take her to the Wiesenthal Center. I could take her to the Los Angeles Museum of Tolerance, where she could see photographs taken at the time of experiments being conducted on children, twins in particular. And she could see the photographs. She could hear the testament from victims who survived. Many died, of course, from the medical experiments, but she could hear firsthand accounts of people who survived those medical experiments. Would that convince her? If you showed her thousands of examples of that, would that convince her? She is beyond epistemological redemption.
Yeah.
She's obviously twisted in her head.
And if it's not obvious, we're going to play another clip that makes it more obvious. But before we do that, Daniel, I'm going to read. Thank you, Crusader General, for another super chat. This one I can read, although your super chats do always challenge me. But thank you for this one as well. He says, Owens looks like a male juvenile. Oh, are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about Candace. All right. Owens looks like a male juvenile, and if you're attracted to that, then you are no different than your prophet. Let's call it that. This is Crusader General's words, not mine. After I read it, I'm now wondering if I should have read it. I don't agree with that, by the way. I don't also agree with Chandler that she's that hot, but yeah. The problem with Candace is her mind and the kind of person she chose to be, and not her looks.
And the truth isn't her interest. I mean, I don't know whether she is, my sense is that she kind of has nothing left to talk about, and her whole raison d'etre. I mean, I always make the point, I've studied Ayn Rand for over 20 years, and there's still so much I'm interested in learning. But, she's got this platform where every day she's like, I think, struggling to fill the time. There was this story from a couple weeks or months ago now where I guess Zelensky came to the United States, and she had posted falsely that Zelensky's wife was spending, tens of thousands of dollars shopping in Paris. Complete BS. But, she ran with it. And did she apologize? Did she acknowledge that she was wrong? Who knows? It's like on to the next story, on to the next headline, and, on to the next click. She's, she reminds me a lot of Ann Coulter or Michelle Malkin. You remember those two? Like, used to be kind of seemingly.
Was Michelle Malkin that bad?
I think
I don't know. It's been a while.
Oh yeah. Oh, Michelle Malkin. Oh yeah. She was early into the. Is it called Groper or Groiper, or I don't know, but it's no friend of individualism, capitalism, or American. in my
Yeah,
mind.
at the same time, she early in her career, she actually praised Ayn Rand, but everything I've seen from her since has been just the opposite, Michelle Malkin. And so, no, I would,
Yeah, and
she did
Ann Coulter, of course,
Ann
her
Coulter.
response to 9/11 was that
Don't
Muslim
even.
countries should be converted to Christianity. Anyway,
Yeah, well,
those are
that's Candace's thing, is that she is going to be Christ now. Christ is king, Christ is king, Christ is king. So like now it's religion is her new grift. And of course
Right.
there's a lot of religious people out there. So when they see a young, just say young, forget even pretty. She's young and people are attracted to young, you know, and Christ is king. So she's picking up. I mean, this is your world, Jim. How many Christians are there out there in the world? How many
It
hundreds
is
of
still the largest religious affiliation on the planet. More
so,
people identify as Christian than any other religion.
so she's
And
got a big
in
audience.
America,
You know,
it's still so pervasive. One of her latest tweets, the Bible is not opinion. That's it. It's beyond, whereas we can question the Holocaust and medical experiments of Mengele and stuff, we cannot question the Bible. The Bible is beyond,
and
the books of Moses and the words of Jesus are beyond anyone's question.
yeah.
Yeah.
Round Earth is not is opinion,
Right,
but the Bible is
exactly.
not.
She's that far gone.
All right. I don't want to be I don't want to be accused of mansplaining and taking over the time when a woman should be speaking. So let's listen to some more of Candace.
Hitler, literally. And so, yeah, imagine my surprise. I know I've showed you this on the show before, but when I actually then started learning real history and I got out of the bubble of the American education system and I started recognizing these Soviet tactics of introducing really heavy concepts to kids while their brains are developing because you want to traumatize them. And you're traumatizing them because you want them to comply. And what you want them to comply with in this case is Germany, Nazi, Hitler, the greatest evil that's ever happened on earth, even though factually and statistically, it is not. And part of that learning process for me when I started looking into it was coming across a huge fact that
wait,
we
wait, can we just
ethnically, the Allies,
Yeah, we can pause
ethnic,
it.
like equating Holocaust to educate? I mean, there's so much to go on, but like just the idea of equating Holocaust education with, what did she say, Soviet style
Education. Yeah.
I mean,
Was it Soviet style education in the 50s and 60s and 70s when my parents and I learned about the atrocities of Hitler?
which is
No, they're just facts. Unbelievable. And she dares to dress it up with the word real history. Yeah, when I really started studying history, what? I mean, my God, woman. And it may be true that more millions of civilians were slaughtered by Stalin or Mao. It's hard to even know the number slaughtered by Stalin and Mao. And it may be greater than the number of civilians slaughtered by Hitler. But the entire phenomenon of 20th century totalitarian, Hitler is right up there, Candace. You're telling me that the slaughter of 11 million civilians within his own jurisdiction does not put Hitler as one of the most evil creatures who ever walked this planet, and that as one of the most evil moments in history? She is utterly downplaying a horrific. I mean, it is hard to imagine someone actually allowing those words to escape her mouth. I'm that disgusted. You have a talent, Rosie, for really picking subjects that will inspire my harshest emotions. It is utterly
The
vile.
subject picked me, I'm afraid, in this case. Yeah, I just want to quickly say on the point, there is kind of a straw man there in saying, Hitler was the greatest evil, and if you don't agree with that, somehow you're wrong. Well, it's not, and even though statistically it's wrong, so it's not a statistical question. And if you say
Yes.
Hitler, it's different if you say, okay, Hitler was the second most evil after Stalin. Nobody's gonna accuse you of anything.
So once you've killed millions of people,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, well, okay, 25 million is, so much worse than 11 million civilians in your own country. I mean,
None
come
of
on.
there's another goal here, Razzie, that you're alluding to, I think. She's just downplaying the Holocaust writ large. Wasn't as bad as everyone says. The Jews really, it's like they've kind of worked this. I mean, to me, I hear that as the secondary. Now, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but she's basically downplaying the severity of the Holocaust.
Yes, nothing less. She's defending the Nazis. She may not be a technical Nazi herself, but she is defending the Nazis. There's no other way of looking at it.
Yeah, and you don't have to be a technical Nazi yourself. I mean, how many of the soldiers and SS officers actually read Mein Kampf and believed it? No, they were inspired by someone to take part, or just followed orders, as Eichmann said. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, Bible is legendary, not real. Nothing in the Torah has been proved to be historical. And thank you, PC, for another super chat.
Don't tell Candace Owens that. It's not opinion to her. It's not an ancient legend to her. It's fact, more fact than the atrocities that occurred within living memory in Germany.
And well, I won't tell her, but she is a regular viewer of this show, I'm sure, so she will hear it from us. Thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC says she loves Adolf. Well, we'll find out her opinion about more of what the Nazis did. I don't know if in this next clip, but in one of them, but there is another clip coming up.
Part of that learning process for me when I started looking into it was coming across a huge fact that we the Allies, ethnically cleansed 12 million Germans. Because when you say to people, okay, what is it about Hitler? Why is he the most evil? Well, the first thing people would say is, well, an ethnic cleansing almost took place. And now I offer back, you mean like we actually did to the Germans? Here's a clip again from that documentary I keep telling you that you have to watch. It premiered on BBC and it is entitled The Savage Peace. I'm going to give you a clip here of a Czechoslovakian civilian who watched what was done to his German-speaking neighbors immediately following the end of the war. Take a listen.
All right, let's pause before we hear her analysis. I mean, one point there was that she said, when you were asked why Hitler was the most evil, then we hear it's because of the ethnic cleansing he almost committed. Is that what she said? No, it's because of the mass slaughter of Jews, of other people. Ethnic cleansing almost took place, is the exact quote. Daniel tells me. No, it's the fact that he wanted to conquer Europe, and the fact that his regime was evil even towards those they didn't want to slaughter. Yeah, for those reasons and many more.
It was Hitler's invasion of the Sudetenland that started kicking off World War II. And by the way, in the aftermath of World War II, East Europe, including East Germany, was under the control of the Soviets, not the British and the Americans, like West Germany was. So all the stuff that's going on in Poland or Czechoslovakia at this time must be laid after the war, or at the end of the war, must be laid at the Russians' feet. I know they were allies, but it's not like the United States and Great Britain did that part. That was the Russians. And by the way, the denazification of areas that the Germans themselves had started occupying is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not going to get into the details about all that, but let's remember, folks, that it was the invasion of Czechoslovakia by Adolf Hitler that actually initiated the whole course of World War II.
I mean, it quickly to fold Miss Rand into this. I remember Dr. Peikoff always talking about rationalism, Jim. And isn't there a lot of that with Candace Owens? It's like she uses the word like killing and says, well, the Allies killed and so did Hitler killed. So look, everyone kills. Is that rationalism, or what's going on with her, I guess, philosophically? Or is it?
I don't even think it rises to the psychoepistemological error of rationalism. I think actually this is anti-conceptual. She's not using words like concepts at all. She's lost in some kind of mystical delusion of her own, where her emotions are determining the facts for her rather than any evidence. I think this is worse than rationalism. I'm not even sure I can, she's giving rationalizations, that's for sure, but I don't think she even merits the compliment almost that the psychoepistemological error of rationalism might imply. That requires a degree of intellectualism that I don't think she's ever reached.
And I'll say the whole time kind of waving the Christ is King banner, she's the moral one. She has the moral high ground. Why? The mysticism of Christ. Christ is king. And all those podcast viewers and book buyers and audience that comes with it.
Right. Well, if science is just a pagan religion, then presumably should be comfortable with shit like the Spanish Inquisition, because we want to Christianize just as much of the world as we can. That's really the only benevolent thing to do. So, if you run across Muslims and Jews, you want to send them to Torquemada. I mean, literally, that seems to be the attitude she has, and she's willing to defend someone worse than Torquemada, or at least downplay his evil, Adolf Hitler. Yeah, you can see my opinion,
I'm
Candace
distracted
Owens, is
by
pretty low.
interesting things happening in the chat. We get some anti-Semitic trolls sometimes, but they typically do not give super chats. I'm gonna say, what socialists say about taxing the rich. We'll spend that money better than you will, but we will not read anti-Semitic super chats, no matter how much money is behind them. All right, let's go to the next clip.
But thank you for the money.
You're probably thinking, but Candace, literally Hitler had the camps. That's what made it different. It was the camps. Imagine camps being used to kill people. Oh, you mean the exact same camps that we then transferred the Germans into so that we could, mass kill them? Yeah, I bet you've never heard the name Solomon Morel before, and you should know about him because Solomon Morel is an interesting character. He had some Soviet training, and then one day he just stood up on top of a table and said to these innocent German-speaking civilians, "I'm going to torture you because I don't know where my parents are," and they were put into camps. And then he began to torture these individuals who were completely guilty of nothing. They were innocent. Here's another clip from that documentary. Take a listen. All under the direction of Solomon Morel. He was a particularly sadistic individual.
I'll just throw this out. It's completely, Jim, to your point, there's an conceptualism about all of it. It's like, let me show you one little example. See, my point is, there's no thinking in concepts at all, or thinking in morals at all, but anything Candace says. She's bewildering to me, but she's a good actress.
Yeah, that's the thing. She's articulate. I mean, she can speak beautifully, but the crap that comes out of her mouth is unbelievable.
So funny. It's like, and you're going to go to bat for anyone, and you have a platform. It's like, really, you're going to go bat for Hitler? I mean, I think of Harry Binswanger, his article on open immigration, for example. Now, this gets people riled up. It's a pretty radical idea, open immigration. Read Harry's article. It's thoughtful. It's well argued, and you could have a debate about it. But it's based in reality too. It's based in fact, and it's based in morality. Kansas is, let me come up with some outrageous topic, make some headlines, and then, didn't she also say that Macron's wife was a man and she was going to stake her career on that? So,
she did.
Yeah. By the way, so Bonnie says in the chat, I literally can't stand this. And I kind of felt that as well with the last clip. So I do want to take a few seconds and read Bonnie's comment from the end of the Daily Objective. We were already going off the air. This was, we were talking about James Valliant's new course about the U.S. Constitution. First session was yesterday, open to all members and all YouTube members. The first session only, and that's only until Thursday. From then on, it'll be for Reardon Medal and Midas Mulligan members. But Bonnie said, the Constitution recording is the best thing I've ever heard. That's quite the compliment and quite the membership pitch. I think better than my membership pitch. And so I think that's a nice segue, unfortunately, back into Candace.
Gosh, thank you so much. I mean, very kind words. I put my heart into it, and I hope to make it of the value that Midas Mulligan or Reardon Medal subscriptions are worth, folks. But we are having a great time, and we're going to cover this in some detail. Thank you, Bonnie.
Back to Candace.
Do you know who else agreed with those Czechoslovakian civilians, that the things that were done to the Germans were utterly horrific. General George Patton Jr., you're probably familiar with his name because he was a very decorated U.S. general in World War II who led the Third Army, both in France and in Germany. Well, post-war, they appointed him as the military governor in Bavaria, and he led denazification efforts, because that's what we're doing. We're trying to denazify the territory. That's a great effort. But then they say that as he was leading this, he became, quote unquote, increasingly erratic. PBS states that in April of 1945, he was removed by Eisenhower from his leadership of the Third Army for making inflammatory remarks concerning the denazification policies. What were those policies? He said, quote, "We may have been fighting the wrong enemy all along, but while we're here, we should go after the bastards now because we're going to have to fight them eventually." He's referring to the Soviets that trained that person that I just showed you, who were utterly sadistic and mass murdering Germans for no reason other than the fact that they were speaking German. They hadn't even voted for Adolf Hitler, had nothing to do with anything, but they had to die. So yeah, if that's what your concern is,
okay.
if your work...
All right, that's so first of all, yeah, when she refers to us, what we did to the Germans, she's referring to Czechoslovakia and she's referring to the Soviets, for the most part. And which is an interesting way of I don't know what exactly she's trying to say. Can two sides not both be evil at the same time, like the Soviets and the Nazis? And anyway.
Well, Ayn Rand, her thought was we should never have been allied with Russia when involved in our war with the Nazis. She certainly saw that the Nazis and the communists would have fought it out, and it would have been better for us to take on the survivor of that, because they're two sides of the same evil coin, absolutely. And to distinguish the two, you're distinguishing forms of evil, Stalin versus Hitler. But it's so ironic because she's saying we did it when it's over, when Russia's doing it. And then she quotes Patton saying from the outset that the Russians are our enemies and a Cold War is about to descend, an Iron Curtain is about to descend. And the allies on the Western side of that curtain are going to be the enemies of these same people that she says were part of us doing the stuff in Eastern Europe. She's not even being logically coherent.
This isn't just like let's have a little history lesson today. Why is she talking about this? Because I believe she also has put forth that Israel is also committing a genocide here. So, genocides are dime a dozen. Sure, maybe Hitler did them, but we did them too. Israel's doing them. So let's just minimize, genocide writ large. It does, it's like if everything's a genocide, then nothing's a genocide. But you know what? Hitler actually committed a genocide.
Right.
And,
and it's a good thing that we denazified Bavaria. He said Patton said some controversial things, but are you telling me that the Nazis should have remained in all of their positions of political power in southern Germany? I mean, that's insane. Utterly insane.
No context of the war at all. There's just kind of like, well, there was killing here and there was killing here, and all the killing is bad, so killing bad. There's no context at all. I remember Dr. Leacoff saying, out of context, anyone could prove anything. So what's so funny? She presents this like she's coming up with this major discovery. Like, tonight, Dateline Live, Candace has this brand new information that you've never heard anywhere else. It's like
so there's a good comment in the chat. Genocide is when Jews defend themselves. Yeah, that seems to be becoming the consensus. There's also a question I have to answer, which is how much is membership? Membership on YouTube is $5 or pounds or euros. It varies based on your location. That's a YouTube thing, not an ARCUK thing. And you can become a member through the website and get access to more stuff. And those memberships range from £10 a month to £500 a month. There's 5 different levels altogether, and they're all more than worth it. A part of this inability to distinguish or inability to accept that there could be two evil sides, in the same war, is something we still have today. This is not unique to Candace, although I think Candace is unique in the direction she takes it with the Nazis and the Soviets. But we see this in the way the West fights in the Middle East all the time, where they don't accept that basically, other than Israel, all sides of anything in the Middle East are evil. And even with Hamas's attack on October 7th, which was truly representative of Palestinian culture and what the Palestinians want, we still hear that we should work with Fatah, the organization that was clearly defined as a terrorist organization until the Oslo Accords, where they became Israel's peace partner. And what has happened from the Oslo Accords until now under Fatah's leadership, including October 7th, we know and we have spoken about in great detail here. So yeah, I think it was Politicus who said somewhere that it's ironic she's a yeah, the irony is she sounds like a moral relativist. There is an irony there. I mean, religious people are not typically relativists. They're wrong on morality, but not that type of wrong. So
The Bible's not an opinion.
The one that is did we get to the one about Planned Parenthood yet?
no, I don't think we have. I don't know if we have it. I'm assuming we have it, Daniel. Let's continue the video and hopefully we'll get it. Oh, all right. Daniel says it's in 30 seconds. Before you go to it, thank you, Tragedy and Comedy, for the super chat. Tragedy and Comedy says, may this be the last time you give her attention. And there's an emoji, a vomiting emoji. Yes, I would hope so, but I don't think that's going to be the case, because she is, again, we're giving her attention not because of what she's saying, because what she's saying will be said, but it should be said in a rational culture by somebody with a megaphone under a bridge, or like a handmade megaphone. But she is, again, she's super prominent and doesn't seem to be harmed in any way with her own audience with these things that she's saying. So this is what makes this type of content, I think, important for us to cover.
Can I just make a difference? I think of, who is the young lady from Latin America who is influenced by Ayn Rand, who used to be on the channel quite a bit?
Her name is escaping me. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Who am I talking? Oh, it's
Gloria.
Gloria, of course. Yeah,
of course. Forgive me, because I've met Gloria, but Gloria is a great example. Someone who happens to be beautiful, but has the right ideas.
right.
She probably gets a lot of attention for both of those reasons. But Gloria is a shining star, and she's what Candace Owens should be. But let's roll the tape before we run out of time.
Worried about camps. We did that. If you're worried about ethnic cleansing, we did that. Don't even get me started on the camps that we forced our own American citizens into following Pearl Harbor. Yep, that's a thing as well. Of course, you remember that. Japanese, some people weren't even Japanese. They were just Japanese looking. And we went ahead and we put them in camps after Pearl Harbor, and we made them stay there until the end of war. So don't let that be something that you think we're not capable of. But then you move on to the experimentation. Yes, of course, that's been embedded into our minds. The Nazis experimented on innocent people. Candace, come on, that's the difference. They experimented on twins. I mean, some of the stories, by the way, sound completely absurd. I'm like, the idea that they just cut a human up and then sewed them back together. Why would you do that? Literally, even if you're the most evil person in the world, that's a tremendous waste of time and supplies. Just slice a person in half and sew them together. That just sounds like bizarre propaganda, but let's just go with it. Let's say that that's actually true. Okay, that experimentation is the thing that
you have to make this stop. I mean, there's just.
But before we get to that part, I do want to say the quick point about internment. Yeah, that was an evil policy by the United States. How does that make Hitler kind of not that bad? Let alone, there are.
It was horrible that Americans interred Japanese people during World War II. My junior high school science teacher grew up in Manzanar, one of those Japanese. Ayn Rand knew people who were interred and was friendly with them. No, it was horrible. But we did not slaughter them, much less slaughter them in the millions, nor did they engage in medical experiments on children at those camps. It is absolutely obscene to make the comparison, although I have to admit that Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the guy that gave us the New Deal, of course, the guy who made the alliance with the Soviets in the war, of course, is the same guy behind those Japanese camps, which were bad. But to compare them to Auschwitz is monstrous. Utterly ignorant. I hope that Daniel will include in the notes the citation to an Oxford University Press book, which will have all of the details laid out for you about the medical experiments that were done under the Nazis. 15,754 documented cases, documented with medical studies, documented with photographs, and documented with survivor accounts, including one utterly moving account that I read just last night from one of these survivors of one of these identical twin studies. If she does not believe the medical reports, the photographs, or the survivor accounts of people, then she is so far epistemologically gone that and to open her mouth to say such things, it's evil. There is no excuse. You cannot advocate something like that without yourself being utterly dishonest and immoral.
Jonathan.
It's going to be more than an emoji when I throw up in about a second here, if I have to continue to listen to this monstrous stuff. Yeah, they did things that seemed absolutely senseless, Candace. They did, just to find out the effects. Believe it or not, people can be and have been that evil. And
Jonathan.
Joseph Mengele was among them. Sorry, this topic gets me quite upset.
This is established fact, and
yes, sir.
Her willingness to just ask questions. Someone in the chat, and thank you. I'm seeing all the people. Look, even if you can't become the 500-pound a month member, Race Jackson, Bonnie, so many of our YouTube only members, Travis, Jesse. It's £5 a month, and you get to be part of our conversation. And look, we're promoting Ayn Rand's perspective. She was really outspoken on so many of the issues related to this. That's why we're focusing on it. And of course, famously, Ayn Rand spoke up about personally being Jewish when faced with anti-Semitism, as Candace said. But just casting doubt on the veracity of the Holocaust facts, Jim. What's the purpose of that? Is it to inflame everyone else? So but she doesn't look smart being ignorant about the Holocaust, just as she didn't look smart being ignorant about Jerusalem. I just think she's like too much time to fill. But let's roll the tape, because the next one.
I do want to quickly read. I don't think I read the last super chat from PC. PC says, Razi, Mrs. Owens makes me vomit. And then there are 2 vomiting emojis. Well, vomiting via super chat is actually a net positive, I think. But anyway, we have some more nauseating stuff. So yeah, let's play.
It sets the Nazis apart. Well, why did we bring them all over here thereafter? What was Operation Paperclip? We took all of those top Nazi scientists and we brought them to America. I wonder why we did that. Maybe for a little more experimentation. Have you heard of Dr. Sidney Gottlieb? Have you ever heard of the CIA? If you think experimentation is unique to the Nazis, you need to wake up. Oh, but Candace, the Nazis murdered people with special needs. You heard of Planned Parenthood? They literally tell you to abort your children if they have special needs. You learn that in the school system. And in terms of experimentation, I invite you again as required readings. This book, Chaos, man. They're talking about this specific operation that took place under the directive of LBJ, who was also a monster, a monstrous president that we had. And this operation was called Phoenix. And I'm just going to read you just a couple of sentences here. Their attempts were sometimes even more unhinged. In 1968, CIA scientists at the Bien Hoa prison outside Saigon surgically opened the skulls of 3 prisoners, implanted electrodes on their brains, gave them daggers, and left them alone in a room. They wanted to shock the prisoners into killing one another. But when the efforts failed, the prisoners were shot and their bodies were burned. Yeah, it's an operation where we just were mass killing civilians, which we do a lot. But there, of course, if we do it, it's different. It's different.
All right. Okay. All right. I want to quickly just say, just
Well,
point out what it is that she's doing here, because she's on the one hand saying, look, all these things that Hitler are accused of are not true or are exaggerations, and then she's saying how horrible America is. So that's where moral relativism ultimately gets you, is, well, you can't really tell who's worse, but actually we're worse than Hitler. Now, if either of you can speak without swearing, I think I am not able to, so please go ahead, because you can swear, actually.
wake up, man. Don't you see it? Nazis are the same as Planned Parenthood. It's the same thing, obviously. I mean, it's what I'm saying. It's like it's just words to her. I don't know. I think if there's no, then that to me is the most evil thing of the whole video. The comparison of the Nazis to Planned Parenthood, and I guess you'd say to being pro-life or abortion rights writ large. She is so creepy and so I'm kind of out of adjectives. And Jim, I'm sure you.
At the Nuremberg trials, and folks, if you haven't read any of the transcripts from that or any books about it, maybe the quickest thing to do is see the Spencer Tracy movie Judgment at Nuremberg. It's an old 60-year-old movie. But one of the things that was brought out that was true is that in the United States, there were places and states where sterilizations of developmentally disabled people occurred. And I don't think that's right, forced sterilization. I think that was wrong. I also think that to compare it to Adolf Hitler, although there are ideological connections, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the racist ideologies like of Chamberlain or something had no effect on Western countries, or indeed the political attitudes of people there. But to compare it to Adolf Hitler is to drop all context, is to drop all temporal context, and they'll bring up the fact Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, she was a racist. And she was a bit of a eugenicist in her goals. There's no doubt about that. I've seen that. But she is also another mixed bag. And the organization Planned Parenthood today provides all kinds of benevolent services, such as birth control and abortion. And the vast majority of abortions happen within the first few weeks. And to compare the abortion of first trimester fetuses in any way to some kind of Holocaust is, well, it's truly evil. It's truly, talk about putting your Christianity before your humanity. That's all I can say.
Am I remembering, Jim, you're more the expert on this than almost anyone I know, that Miss Rand talked about abortion as being, this is my characterization, somewhat of a litmus test about politics?
Yes. She regarded issues like the draft and abortion as being so fundamental that the state is saying, in effect, we own your life. And in effect, aren't they? If they make a woman have a baby and either raise a baby or give up that baby to what unknown fate the woman might not know, or if they take a young man or a woman and they say, no, you've got to go out and fight and die in some foreign war against your will, whether you understand or agree with it or not, what the state is saying is that they own your life. Issues like that were so important to Ayn Rand that she believed it really was a state assertion of ownership over individual lives. I agree.
Dr. Peikoff, I'll quickly mention on this issue, Ms. Rand's influence helped abolish the draft in the US. We've talked about that with Martin Anderson. Dr. Peikoff has this article, Abortion Rights Are Pro-Life, at his website that I know we'd all really recommend on this issue.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we only have a couple minutes. We might go, if you guys are okay with it, a couple of minutes over, but it's not going to be more than that because there's only one clip left. And yeah, all right, I have a point to make, but I'll make it after we play this clip. And we might not even need to play the whole thing. Let's see how far how much we can stomach in one go.
Hitler, we drop bombs on entire populations. We firebomb Christians. We drop a nuke on praying Catholics. And if you know about it, you get screamed at by the propagandists in the West. Knowing about it is the crime. The crime is not actually dropping a bomb on praying civilians in Nagasaki. That's not the crime. The crime is not firebombing people through Ash Wednesday in Dresden who were civilians, children. No, that's not the crime. The crime is you knowing. It's me knowing. That's the real problem. And I got to stop knowing these things. I got to stop knowing about Pol Pot. I got to stop knowing about the Cambodian genocide and knowing that, of course, there were people that did worse things throughout history. Especially as a Christian, I have got to stop talking about Henryk Yagoda. They get real upset when you talk about the Bolsheviks. You want to know why? Because the Bolsheviks were never brought to heel. The Bolsheviks never had to face trials. There were no Nuremberg trials for the Bolsheviks. In fact, many of them came to America, and many of them are in positions of power right now. And that's why they get real angry when you start looking into history, when you start recognizing that they are intentionally
Sometimes, sometimes I really can't take it, even though I did pick this topic. But there's something in Candace that has sort of come full circle, or full, whatever the flat earth equivalent of circle is, in that, she was, as Jonathan, as you mentioned, she was a leftist, and then she was pro-Trump, and that is supposedly
Christian.
yeah, and that is like pro-Trump is supposedly not the left, but his ideas are very much similar to some left-wing ideas. And now she does sound like a more articulate version of a student, a Marxist protester, saying how evil we are about for all those things that we did everywhere in the world and that we're doing. They don't say we bombed Catholics, I mean, but they say we bombed
And
civilians.
notice that the firebombing of Dresden happened on Ash Wednesday. That's really the problem with wait.
By the way,
No,
she
we
didn't mention
destroyed
the
a major
Jesus
industrial
statue that
center of
survived,
the
right?
Nazis, is what we did. And Nagasaki, yes, of course, there were. And the funny thing is, yes, of course, there are, there'd been Catholic missionaries. There were Catholics praying in Nagasaki. Mostly they were Shintos praying in Nagasaki when that happened. So why does she focus on the Catholics? In any case, Nagasaki helped save lives. A ground invasion of the main island of Japan would have cost probably millions of lives. And what? She's on the side of the bad guy, the Axis in World War II, saying that Dresden and Nagasaki were the great evils? I mean, this woman is incoherent mentally.
I think that's the thing. It's her whole shtick is only I know about this. I got the real scoop. So stay tuned. Only I'm talking about this. That's the crime. There's a hucksterism, I think, about everything he's doing, where it's stay close. I've got the real scoop. That she's not actually explaining much of anything. I mean, this is like a word salad of a bunch of historical references that I guess sounds kind of interesting. I mean, but there's actually no history there. It's just this, stay tuned until the next outrage on this,
Well, now,
Razi, to your point, I mean, I know what, Jim, you were doing in 2016 because I knew you in 2016. Razi, you were also studying Ayn Rand. Candace Owens was a Trump basher back then. That was a good place for her to be, good way to make some money and get some attention. And now she, and I think Russell Brand is very much the same thing. I mean, Russell Brand is a big Christian now, so he's going to ride this train for a little while and see where that can go. And then he'll have a relapse. I don't know, like run out of ideas. But
we have a super chat from Kirk Wilcox. Thank you, Kirk. Kirk says, but at least Candace is not the left. Yes, although she kind of is, although I don't really know what left and right means. But Jonathan, the way you put it with the scoop that's about to come up made me think we should play that last clip, because maybe that's where the scoop is. Maybe it all comes together at the end and Candace is actually right and we're wrong. Let's check it out. 45 seconds left, Daniel says. Let's see what she has to say in those 45 seconds.
When Christians just shut up about the Christians that have been killed all across the world. They get very uncomfortable when you know stuff that they did not put into your book when you were in middle school to traumatize you into compliance of believing that the only bad people ever, there's only two of them, by the way, Putin and Adolf Hitler. So to those people, I'm just going to say, spare me, because I'm not going to stop talking about real history. I'm going to educate people that follow me about real history, because it's the only way that we're going to prevent these psychopaths from doing more psychopathic things in the future. If you're looking for people that behave like literally Hitler, it ain't me, buddy. You got to start examining your own government. That's all I'm going to say on that topic.
Jonathan, parting thoughts?
My new book, I mean, she's incoherent, and I'm glad we're covering her because she, I think, unfortunately, is legitimizing anti-Semitism. She is mainstreaming it. She's just asking questions on established fact, which Jim alluded to, which there's museums dedicated to. And I think this brand of, hucksterism is pretty sad. And my new book is called Can You Really Love a Dog? It's available at Amazon.
And it's a wonderful book. If you haven't checked it out yet, people, go check out. There's some amazing pictures and quotes from both Ayn Rand and Leonard Peikoff that you really don't want to miss. That's a much more pleasant topic than this woman. And for her to allow the words real history to emit from her mouth after all that she just said there is one of the great obscenities about history that I've heard recently. And she is the psychotic. She is the unhinged one. No, she may not be, Auschwitz. She may not be Mengele himself performing the medical experiments, but she's downplaying it, minimizing it, and to that degree defending it. So, Miss Owen, no, you've got it all upside down. You're the psychotic, and you should never offend the world by letting the words "real history" in that context emit from your big gob, ma'am.
Yeah, defending it or downplaying it on the one hand, accusing America, accusing the West of being just as bad, if not worse, on the other, is ultimately consistent with where she has been, certainly since October 7th, and where generally supporters of the Palestinians are, because they look at a conflict where there is one side where there's valid criticism to be made of Israel, and then there's another side that's pure evil. And if you can't see the side that's pure evil as pure evil, you will end up siding with it. That's where she is. That's where the pro-Hamas people are, and that's who we are going to continue fighting against. So I hope you all enjoyed this content. You think it's valuable. If you do, consider, of course, commenting, sharing, liking. Every such action and engagement on the video helps with the algorithm. And of course, if you become a member, you support our work and enable us to do more of this and get it out to more people. Thank you, James. Thank you, Jonathan. We are back tomorrow with the Daily Objective. We'll see you then.